Wax on, wax off. So you can be hair-free at the card pool. I'm your host, Stu.
It's important. I'm Kyle.
Today, we're looking at part 2 of our hidden gems, meaning 1 through 5, where it's the awesome cards you missed.
Yes, indeed. And you can look back at our previous segment, which was items 10 to 6 of our hidden gems. So, yep, you're pointing the right direction. I trust you. So take a look back at that if you want, if you missed the previous video. But for now, we're going to get to the tippy top, the creme de la creme.
Tippy top at 5. 50?
Let's do it.
And at my number 5, Kyle, if you don't mind me starting,
go ahead.
A phenomenal card called Lore Seeker's Stone. It's a 6-mana artifact. For 3 mana, you can go ahead and tap this bad boy to draw 3 cards. However, this ability costs 1 more for each activation, meaning that it costs 1 more to activate for each card in your hand. Literacy, yeah. words and reading. So this is a great card that's great for drawing more cards, especially if you love depleting your hand. So if you're using a deck that likes using Madness or any form of discard, or you're wheeling, or you just happen to just be dropping so many little creatures out there and populating the field that they're so low costed, you want a way to get your hand back. And this is a really strong card to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. This one I'm kind of on the fence about. However, what I will say is, if you consider the baseline for drawing 3 cards, which is essentially what this deck does, what this card does.
The whole deck of this card, yeah.
What this card does. So if you look at, especially like you see it mostly on blue cards, usually to draw 3 cards is about 5 mana. So like 5 or 6 mana to draw 3 cards, and there's maybe some other effects tacked on, but that's normally the baseline effect there.
You're going like a Factor Fiction route or something.
So this, if it's just played, I mean, you have to tap 6 to initially cast it, which is not a small amount, and it's probably not going to happen very early on in the game. But if you tap this for 3 mana and draw 3 cards, that is a great deal.
Yes.
If you tap this for 4 mana and draw 3 cards, that's still all right. It's once you get into the like tapping it for 5 or 6 territory that it starts getting not so good.
Well, that's for value, yes. Yeah. But however, if you have no cards in your hand, you just top deck the land and you have nothing, 3 mana is nothing.
Oh, well, right. That's absolutely where this card shines. Like you said, if you're playing a deck where you constantly deplete your hand, some kind of Hellbent Madness deck, or maybe even something like mono red or mono white that has difficulty drawing a lot of cards.
Too. Yeah.
That's where this card belongs.
Or even mono green, who doesn't draw any cards truly on its own.
I don't know. Green is way better at drawing cards than red and white are these days.
If you got a wallet that's kind of heavy, sure, maybe. There's some of those cards are not cheap. Most of those cards are not cheap. But yeah, this is a great card that's good for that kind of value, depending on what you're going on for that. You can also cheat this into play. It's an artifact. There's tons of ways to bring it back from the grave, bring it in, swap it out, inverse it out. So it works for any deck. This is something that you do see Eldrazi's run because they need something to keep up that speed,
right? Or
anything else.
And colorless needs card draw.
Exactly. Like I hope a Gaiper needs this. Like there's only so many cards that can draw, like quote unquote draw them stuff. Like even a Solemn Simulacrum, as much as they want to play that and get the land, they're really crying for that draw a card off of that. So
right.
Just something out there. I like it. I use it. I love it. Just wanted to talk about it.
It's interesting. I think it has its uses, but you're gonna get a sense of a theme in these top 5 because the vast majority of these cards that we picked all came from one deck, and it's probably the best one in this release.
I don't know about
we'll
that.
talk about it.
They're all from the same deck?
Pretty much, yeah. They're all from the red deck. Which the red deck was
spoiler
the best. We'll get to
alert,
that.
But all right,
anyway,
go on to your number 5, Kyle.
So yeah, let's tackle one of said cards, which
is
a new legend, Feldon of the Third Path. So this is, once again, a legendary human artificer. It costs 3, 1 generic, and 2 red, and he's a 2/3. He has a tap ability as well. So for 2 and 1 red and a tap, put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of target creature in your graveyard, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. It gains haste, and then sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step.
Yeah, where do you start with this? This is
a
lot.
I remember this was on your original long list that you wanted to talk about for this set, and then you cut it, and I was like, what? Stu loves this card.
I love this card. It's pretty much Santa Claus the card.
Which it is,
It's so good. All right, well, I'm gonna take a little bit of a lead on this one if you don't mind. So obviously, with red, there's tons of cards that discard. Faithless Looting or Wheeling, for example. Red has probably some of the most effective wheels in the game. Also, you have things that are just going to make you discard it just for fun, mill out your deck, impulse draw, whatever you want to say. So what do you do with all that value in the grave? Red doesn't really have a lot of answers for that. But as a commander, it is super strong. Well, there's a couple commanders that really like to abuse it. But this is one of the ones that's the best bang for your buck, because for 3 mana, you can get something out that is not 3 mana, and it's coming and swinging hard.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, Feldon is making a red reanimator deck possible, which is a bizarre concept, but it's kind of great. And everything about this card is great because, one, it's a tap ability, which can be easily reused in the same turn, or copied, or whatever. Then also the card that gets brought back, as you said, it can be immensely discounted, but it becomes an artifact. That actually can be very, very important.
Yes.
So that involves all kinds of synergies with artifacts. You bring back a big token or something, you attack with it or do whatever you're going to do with it, and then you can be like, oh hey, it's an artifact, I'm going to use like a trash or treasure and sacrifice it and get a different artifact back from my graveyard.
Yeah, or
because you can do that.
Or the scrapyard. Clan Ironworks, pretty
Right,
much.
exactly.
Like that. Just go ahead and get some more value off of value. But also, one of the things that you can do with this being in red, you start thinking about, it's like, what do you want in the grave? Well, Anger is something, but Zealous Conscripts is something that you would want in this. Go ahead, you get that out, untap it, use it again, get something big.
Exactly.
Keep comboing, getting 2 guys out per turn. And that's just doing it the brute force way. There's tons of ways that you can abuse this guy to get, easily 4 or 5 cards out from the grave.
And then again, this is one of those cards that kind of isn't really the fixed version of this effect because it's not exiling the token, so there's no death shenanigans. It is sacrificing it, so that gives things like Stalking Vengeance and Vicious Shadows a huge amount of power. So yeah, I mean, Vengeance being one that's more obvious because it's a creature, but Vicious Shadows, I love that card. It's one of my favorite underrated red cards.
That name, that could be a super villain name. That sounds like a great
but basically, it's an enchantment that when a creature dies, you then can do damage to somebody equal to the number of cards in their hand. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, there's a variety, and I mean, even something like Impact Tremors or something like that is really good with this as well. So there's so many ways you can do this. This is red. Any kind of value deck where it's just generic, this color good stuff is always kind of like, like it's a guy who has a collection that doesn't really know how to fine tune it.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about that with this commander.
Yeah,
just throw the good stuff in and make it rain.
Mono red sort of gets overlooked in Commander a lot of the time, I feel, but it's gotten a lot better in recent years. Because we've got stuff like the top tier is basically like Feldon, and then there's Neheb the Eternal, which is another awesome one. And then there's another one which I think you want to talk about next.
That's the card I'm bringing up now. My number 4 is a Planeswalker commander that we can have called Daretti Scrap Savant. It costs 4 mana, 3 generic, and a mountain, obviously. For a 3 loyalty Planeswalker, it has a +2 where you can go ahead and discard up to 2 cards and draw that many cards. A -2 to sack an artifact, and if you do, return artifacts from your graveyard to the battlefield, similar to Feldon almost. And a -10 where you get an emblem whenever an artifact is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, return it to the battlefield at the next end step. So this is a very artifact-centered, from the grave kind of style, great synergy, low-costed, amazing Planeswalker commander who's just out to get your opponents in the best way possible. And the best thing, so diving into the +2 first thing, you don't have to target any card in your hands.
Exactly, up to 2 cards. So that's one of those. They've been good about making these things on Planeswalkers where you can't have a plus where it's like, oh no, I can't fulfill this, so I can't plus my Planeswalker. No, they've been good about that, and that's one example of this. But up to 2, so you could discard 1 or 2. So that's basically like drawing 2 cards every turn. That's pretty good.
It is,
especially in
red.
red.
Hand. Yeah, it's so good, and especially with his second ability, drop a big artifact that you cannot play. And you want to play, but it's just too early in the game for it to be relevant. Well, no, go ahead, dump it for the first turn, get the loyalty up so it can take a hit, then minus it. Even if you kill this guy, you're going to get something with an immensely great trade-off value. In theory, that's what you want to get. That it's like, all right, I lost the Planeswalker, I'll get my commander out next turn, it's fine. But now I'm a threat on the board.
Yeah, well, yes, I would like to sacrifice my Mana Rock for my Worm Coil Engine. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. And then next turn, I think I'll sacrifice my Worm Coil Engine, get a different artifact back. Oh, and I get 2 tokens, too. Feldon can do the exact same thing. The artifact stuff is broken. Artifact stuff is awesome. That's why I love these commanders.
Yeah, this is so good. And especially, lastly, for the -10, doesn't happen too much. But again, people will eventually stop trying to punch this commander and start trying to punch you. So that, this commander won't actually come back anymore. But at that point, typically you'll see that this guy will start getting up to 8 loyalty, or maybe, it starts creeping up slowly. So eventually you end up getting this emblem. And when it does happen, it's pretty much game over, because especially with the -2 going off, it's real easy to just take it to town.
Yeah, I gotta say, I played a Duretti deck for a while. I don't think I ever once got the ultimate to go off, but it doesn't matter because the other two abilities are just so great.
And sometimes even when you have enough loyalty on it to use the ultimate, you're like, nah, I'm going for the value. I can kill him this turn. I don't even need to do this.
Yeah, I'm not super convinced about the ultimate on this guy. I mean, it can be pretty good, but I would much rather use the other two abilities over that. Yeah. Much rather.
And the only thing that's kind of a little bit of a shame is it's the +2, -2, so you end up just kind of like dirtling around with the loyalty. It doesn't end up going too much. So it's kind of like, if only the values were different, it would be a little bit more interesting. Like, even if it was like a +1, -2 kind of thing, I mean, it wouldn't be as ideal, but it would still be valuable.
Right, and I have more I can say about that, but that'll wait for another video.
All right,
but yeah, this is a really, really good Planeswalker, a great potential commander, probably one of the better artifact commanders out there.
I would say it's probably one of the better mono red ones.
Oh, absolutely,
it's definitely in the top 3.
Like I said, in the top tier with Feldon and Neheb for sure.
There's other good ones out there. Nor in the Wary, I'm just going to say, undersung hero.
Well, speaking of, we're going to go straight into my number 4, which is yet another red card. Dualcaster Mage. Now, I love this card.
Yeah,
it should come as no surprise to anyone.
Yeah.
It is a 2/2 human wizard with 3 mana, 1 colorless, 2 red, has flash, so you can play it whenever you want. And when Dualcaster Mage enters the battlefield, copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. You all know the drill. This is a Reverberate for an extra 1 mana that also gives you a 2/2 body. There are any number of reasons why this is an improvement over a simple Twincaster Reverberate, because being a creature opens up a whole new realm of shenanigans to play with.
Especially for only 3 mana.
There's been a Wizard Tribal deck that came out in recent years, with Inala, that basically doubles every wizard that comes into play.
So this is just oppressive.
There's stuff like Panharmonicon. There's all kinds of things.
It's only gotten better as time. If this was a grape that was bottled forever ago, this wine is a fine specimen.
And it's 1/2 of an infinite combo with a bunch of different cards, actually. The most notable ones being a Twin Flame and Cackling Counterpart, where the way it goes is you have to have another creature in play first.
I knew you were going to go into this.
Right. You have to have another creature in play first, but if you cast one of these cards that essentially makes token copies of any target creature, then you flash in the Dualcaster Mage, copying that to target your own Dualcaster. And so on and so on, and it goes. You create an infinite stream of tokens.
It's like almost a different Kiki Jiki, almost.
Yeah, it basically does the same thing, except using instants. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the question people usually have is like, do I want Snapcaster or do I want Dualcaster? And honestly, the real answer you come down to is I'm making room for both, even if I'm taking a land out of the deck.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they're just so good. They're so versatile. They're so strong. And, I mean, look at something like we just said with Feldon. Go ahead, play something, tap 3, get him back, duplicate it. It can be very impressive, especially when you're playing big, expensive spells where Red has a good handful of them.
Yeah, and note that it says copying target instant or sorcery spell. Again, does not have to be your own. You could target somebody else's Giant Exsanguinate, for example.
Yep. Yeah, get right back in that face. It's great. Yeah, you can. It's a tricky card. You always see this in Izzet. You see it with Storm. You see it with a bunch of other things. And honestly, this is the first time you've seen it. We're glad we showed it to you. But if it isn't, we definitely understand why you're going to want to pass forward through this part. But going on to my number 3. Now, this is a card I love. I know you love it.
Yeah, another card Stu stole from me.
Yeah, I'm a thief. It's called Wave of Vitriol. It costs 7 mana, 5 generic, and double green for a sorcery that reads, each player sacrifices all artifacts, enchantments, and non-basic lands he or she controls. For each land sacrificed this way, its controller may search his or her library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped. Then each player who searched the library shuffles it this way. God, I know this card from you and I respect it. I didn't think you'd choose it per se. So I'll let you take first dibs. Why do you love this card?
Well, I will say that while this is a very powerful card, I would not play it in just any deck because it does require everyone to sacrifice a lot of different things.
Yes.
I mean, it's nice that it kind of replaces the lands that you'll lose, but you are hurting yourself essentially, and you're also having to sacrifice all artifacts and enchantments. And there's really no way around this. I mean, it's not like a board wipe where you can, oh, I can make my stuff indestructible. Not really. Although there are a number of decks, like, granted, that sacrificing doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah.
But the reason I love this card so much is because one of my favorite commanders out there that utilizes sacrificing abilities is Mazarek, the commander that whenever anyone sacrifices anything, you can basically pump your entire team with +1/+1 counters. I played this card as one of basically the finisher cards of that deck, and it is incredible.
Yes.
People get destroyed by this, and they never see it coming.
Well, yeah, because this is a card that's really off the grid, and it's a very weird board wipe because it doesn't affect creatures. Because green loves its creatures. It's not going to touch them. So everyone's always prepared to lose creatures. Maybe one artifact or enchantment, max 2 probably, unless there's some combo on the field. So when this hits, everyone's surprised. Everyone's got their pants down except for you, because you're ready to go wild with this. And especially if you have landfall triggers, this is massive for you.
Yeah, and if they don't have a lot of basic lands stored up in their deck, this is especially devastating against like those 5-color decks that don't play a ton of basic lands, because you're essentially ghost quartering all of their lands, and they may not get anything.
No, they might
return.
lose probably about 2/3 of their lands and get 3 in return.
Yeah, so that said, this ability, I mean, it costs 7 mana. This is an expensive card to play.
It isn't green, though.
It requires some like preparation and setup to use effectively, but still, just an absolutely devastating card.
And it works great with other decks that like to have certain things hit the grave. So if you're using stuff that like Tasigur Delves, go ahead and play this. Now you have a free Tasigur again. Like, you can go ahead and make it so like you can get the value you need. Titania, losing the lands, it doesn't hurt. You go ahead and you get tokens to replace it. And I mean, the list goes on and on for where it can really, really shine. The only thing is, if you have the old Sigarda out and you're not going to sacrifice stuff, well, you might not want to play this until you get that problem off the board.
Right.
But it is just a great, it is a ace up the sleeve card that you've showed me, and I respect and fear. So I wanted to talk about it for that reason alone.
Well, it's a good choice, and yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, the next card you're talking about, I was going to talk about as well. So, all right, go for it, Cal.
All right, well, number 3 on our list, going back to the red artifact theme of this video, is Scrap Mastery, and it is a sorcery that costs 5, 3 generic, and 2 red. Each player exiles all artifacts from their graveyard, then sacrifices all artifacts they control. Then you put all artifacts that were exiled already onto the battlefield. So basically, it's a red artifact-themed version of Living Death.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say.
You exchange the artifacts that are in play with the artifacts in your graveyard. And as people who have been watching these videos know, Living Death is one of my all-time favorite cards in Magic. So when they printed a version for artifacts, I was all over it immediately.
Boing.
Because it's even more potentially unfair and abusable.
Yeah,
really,
having the power of this,
great.
especially when you have stuff like Brea deck where everything's an artifact, you're not going to be losing much when you play this. You're going to be gaining so much more, especially if your opponents only have a handful of artifacts. Sure, they might get a Soul Ring back or some mana rocks, maybe even a creature or two, but what you're getting in return is combo pieces, finisher moves, a board state that's so unparalleled. You're gonna win.
Yeah, as the art suggests, this did come in the Duretti Precon along with that Planeswalker, and it's pretty much the game plan. You just dump artifacts continuously throughout the game, accumulating advantage, and then one Scrap Mastery can basically end the game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this card is kind of crazy, and it's just a staple for any artifact deck, pretty much.
I'm pretty sure Wave of Vitriol was not from the artifact.
No, but it's like the only one in this video that wasn't.
All right, I was going to say, I didn't think it was all. Yeah, we pretty much said a lot of things about this card. I mean, you said a lot of things that I would say. It can be broken, it can be unfair, and I mean, also, picture's awesome. You got like, if you're doing a Duretti deck, you're throwing this in not only for theme and flair, but because it's efficient.
Oh yeah.
But moving on to my number 2, Stu's number 2.
All right.
I'm gonna start doing that more. Stu's number 2 is gonna be Unstable Obelisk. It costs 3 mana, and it has 2 effects. The generic, you can go ahead and tap this and produce 1 generic mana. Or for 7, you can sack this and destroy target permanent. So this is a very interesting mana rock. Now, typically for mana rocks, they're single serving. They only produce mana. A couple examples here and there, they might do something else like draw you a card or something like that, or you can sack it to like the spell bombs and stuff like that. You can do something niche for here and there. But being able to have a meteor golem on a 3-drop guy like this, it is incredible. It is. I don't know why people run Meteor Golem and not this. It blows my mind. This only helps you boost your mana and can get rid of any permanent. A land, a planeswalker, everything except for an emblem pretty much, people. This is awesome because it's going to sit around and later you can use it and lose it so you win.
Yeah, well, this is another one we're going to fight over because I wanted to talk about this one myself too.
Well, it's a great card.
We've had a lot in common in this set, but for good reason because, yeah, this card is really, really solid. Because it's a colorless mana rock, I don't think it belongs in like every single deck ever.
No.
However, I do believe that this is an auto-include staple in pretty much any given monocolor deck. Because
I would even say up to dual.
Plenty of monocolor decks, especially like black, for example, and blue, struggle with answers to certain kinds of permanents. And this both boosts your mana. And, hey, if you really need an answer, it's there for you later in the game, so why wouldn't you use this?
No, every color type has something that it misses. Red can't hit enchantments, pretty much. White has problems hitting, well, actually can hit lands, but it's at a global kind of state.
Right.
But, like, it's just being able to get rid of that worry, knowing that this is your toolbox answer for anything. You know you have to dig for this, but it's an artifact. Artifacts are the most tutorable thing in the game, pretty much. So being able to get this thing out in a variety of ways, and having this on the field, it's kind of like that warm blanket your mom's going to give you. Like, oh, come here, you're sick, we're going to make you feel better. This is like that kind of thing right there. You can sit pretty, knowing as long as you get the mana, you got no problem.
And again, for those Eldrazi decks or other colorless commander decks out there, which are kind of short on removal as it is, this is pretty much the best thing in your arsenal, really.
Yeah, it's just so good. You could even argue putting it in a tricolor deck. It wouldn't work necessarily as good, but like, it's just home to so many awesome plays, and
oh yeah, this one it's a great card.
You can taste the salt on this card on players. It's
so underrated too.
Yeah,
it really is.
So going to your number 2, Kyle.
All right, well my number 2 is another one that this one is not underrated, but still very good. Myriad Landscape. It is a land. The first time we're talking about a land in this set review. But it's a colorless one, comes into play, taps for 1 colorless mana. And then you can tap 2 and tap and sacrifice it to search your deck for up to 2 basic lands that share a type, put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your deck. So this is a double Terramorphic Expanse or Evolving Wilds,
or
basically.
A Burnished Heart land, pretty much.
Yeah, the benefits are it does come into play tapped. However, and the lands
That's
that
not
it
a
gets...
benefit.
Well, the benefits... so it comes into play tapped, and the lands that it gets are tapped, but the benefit is it does tap for mana itself, so it's not totally useless.
Yes.
Yeah, so it can sit there and just, be a land generating mana for you. However, it can also, like I said, become a double Evolving Wilds to big 2 landfall triggers, ramp you, basically. Yeah, it's just a great card. Again, a staple for monocolor decks.
Yeah. So I love this for a variety of reasons as well. I don't think it's necessarily for monocolored. I think this can be applied to many other things. If you're doing landfall, obviously this works because you're getting 2 triggers and also the land for turn. Also, green and white have a version of this as well. I can never remember the name of it, but it's pretty much the same thing.
Crows and Verge. Yeah,
Crows and Verge. So it's pretty much like, so if you could have this in any color, that's what this is. But being able to be in green, white, and getting 2 of these, it's phenomenal. This doesn't take up a card slot for ramp. Kodama's Reach is a great card, but that's not in all colors. So being able to give this in red, black, whatever, this is very strong, and these colors need this.
Yeah, exactly. The same case I made for Unstable Obelisk goes for Myriad Landscape. It covers the holes in a lot of strategies, especially, like I said, monocolor ones are where it really shines, because the basic lands that you get, one, they have to be basic, so you can't sneak shock lands into play like you can with Crows and Verge, and 2, they have to be the same type. So
It's a little
I've
worse in
seen
that
people
case.
play this. I've seen people play this in 2-color decks. I wouldn't do it myself, but I understand it. In a monocolor deck, though, like I said, this if you're not playing this, you're crazy because this is
Well,
absolutely a
you
staple.
mean to tell me a blue-black deck wouldn't want this, or a Rakdos deck? Of course they would want to use this. I mean, you would ideally want a Burnished Heart scenario where you get one of each color, sure.
Right.
But either way, whichever one you're lacking, you're going to want. But also, since it is basic lands, this works with stuff with, like, Emeria, Valakut, Cabal
does.
Coffers.
Yeah.
So those kind of things that give you a huge boost, this is only helping you get to those quicker.
Yeah, so again, it's very simple. I don't think there's a lot to say about it other than it's great.
Yeah, it's really great. And actually, I didn't realize it was the OG in this set.
Oh, yeah.
But actually, I'm talking about one that is a land that's OG to this set as well, because I think it might be a little better.
Alright,
For my number one, we're talking to the land Arcane Lighthouse. It is a colorless land producing for colorless mana, and for one colorless as well. You can tap this to make it so that until the end of the turn, creatures your opponents control lose Hexproof and Shroud, and can't get those effects either. So this is a very strong card for the fact that now Lightning Greaves is not doing anything except giving haste. Being able to take away that keyword Hexproof is strong. Being able to get rid of Shroud is even stronger. Now it makes it so all your spot removal can be turned online, all for the cost of one generic and tapping this land. It creates so much more value for you just being able to hit things that you can't normally hit.
Well, for the record, I am not going to argue that this card is not good and does not have a home places. It does, obviously. However, I'm not as hot on this card as Stu is because it requires a combination with one or more other cards to be good, obviously, because if you remove those abilities, you need to then follow them up with something.
Of course.
It is really useful if you can fit it into your deck because Shroud and Hexproof can be really unfair a lot of the time. And like commanders like a Lazav, for example, or a Sigarda that already have Hexproof.
Or who's the guy that produces the angels?
Are pretty nuts.
The blue-white guy, when he goes ahead and he attacks, creates a 4/4 angel.
Oh yeah, Geist.
Geist.
Yeah,
Geist is Saint Trash.
Yes. So can it be good in some cases? Yes, but I don't know. It doesn't take up a spell slot also, which is nice. We should mention that. So,
but the thing that you're also missing, you don't need to have an answer. You're just giving an opportunity to an opponent to take out a problem. So
well, right,
make
it is
so
a
that
useful
something,
politics card as well. It
yeah,
can be.
you can totally make it so that you're fine with things now all of a sudden, especially when you're getting global blanket effects like the new Sigarda pretty much can make it so that all humans and that player have Hexproof. So you're not targeting that opponent, or are you?
But is it well? What
Are you targeting the opponent with Arcane Lighthouse?
No, because it says creatures all your opponents control. It's blanket for everyone. You're
Yeah,
not
but
targeting
Sigarda
one
makes it so
person.
that opponent can't be targeted. So this makes it so that it would be
It would still work.
It would
No,
still hit?
Oh yeah, totally. But
either way, the point I'm
yeah.
bringing is for all those humans which you wouldn't be able to hit before because you're having a blanket kind of effect like that,
Yeah.
they're now susceptible. You can now take them out and you can now destroy them.
Yeah, my point is that like this. I don't think this is a staple card. I think this is a very niche card, which is good in a small handful of decks. Like, for example, I have a Yasova Dragonclaw deck, which obviously, because of the commander and a lot of the other cards in it, the main point is to target other people's things. Therefore, this card is very, very useful.
Right.
Because it gets around those pesky Hexproof and Shroud creatures. However, in your average run-of-the-mill deck, where you might not have a lot of effects that target other things, do I care about it or think it's that useful? Probably not.
Well, so, all right, if you couldn't tell, Kyle and I have two huge debates on mana base, and he's always wrong and I'm always right. So, but having stuff like a Homeward Path, it's something that's great value. It's good for a particular moment. You're not going to want just lands that fix your mana. You're going to also want stuff to be versatile.
I'm much more concerned about my color bases than he is.
And I'm more concerned about having answers for everything. So that's where we draw a line. So for people who like to be prepared for all scenarios, you Boy Scouts out there, this is part of your Swiss Army knife.
It's part of it, but there are also other cards that can pretty much cover the same things. Like, instead of jumping through hoops with this, just play a board wipe that can clean everything up, you know? Don't worry about getting each individual creature. I don't know. It's a whole
It stands
thing.
to reason. I can give you a couple counterexamples where mine's better than yours. So I mean, we'll throw up a debate for the poll. Is Arcane Lighthouse something that you would throw into most decks, even if your commander doesn't have a targeting effect?
Yeah,
We'll throw
that's
it in
an
there.
that's an interesting question.
So I'll just say out there, are you Team Stu or Team Kyle? So click on this guy.
All right, well, I guess time to get to my number one.
Nah,
And this one,
it's gonna be garbage.
I don't know. I don't think anybody can argue with this one, not even you. So my number one for the set is Commander's Sphere, which, yeah, it's been reprinted a lot of times, but this was the original,
Yeah.
and boy, does it rock.
As much as it rock, that's hilarious.
So it is a 3-drop artifact. It taps to give you 1 mana of any of your commander's colors. And then, for no cost at all, at any time, you can sacrifice it to draw a card. This, between this and Myriad Landscape, I was really unsure which one I would rank higher.
This is better.
Because they're both super awesome cards, but this one had to take precedence because Myriad Landscape, like I said, is pretty much confined to monocolor decks, in my opinion. This one, other than monocolor decks, where it's not actually that awesome, should be in pretty much every deck you build. I mean, if you're not running this in your commander deck, you better have a real good reason for it.
Well, it's card draw. It's almost a better Mind Stone, I would say.
Oh, it is. Oh, it's absolutely a better Mind Stone.
You would prefer a Mind Stone in a single color deck as opposed to this. But also the one thing I do love how they did is color identity, not color cost, casting cost, because we do see creatures where it's like the cost on the CMC doesn't affect the
abilities.
The ability.
Right. So yeah, you can have a creature that's considered 5 colors without actually costing 5 colors to
exactly.
cast.
And also the added part of drawing a card off of this is so great because how many times do you see a Chromatic Lantern fall to the ground and it's like, it was so good, it was doing so much work, but now it's just gone. It feels really bad. Well, now having the ability to go ahead and lose this rock, whether it's getting targeted or not, if you just need value for your hand, you can do it and you can make it happen. And this is recurable.
Oh yeah, this is free draw that is reusable.
Yeah.
And it pays for itself. How great is that?
Yeah, it really is so good. It's a phenomenal card. One of the best things they've made from a commander set by far. It works for so many things, whether it's neglected or not.
Yeah, it's right up there with the Command Tower land as things you need to run.
Yeah, this is a staple in Commander, and it's not going to be going away for a long time.
No.
Although, you could make an argue for the Arcane Signet that's coming out.
That's going to be an interesting one. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be difficult to see where that ranks. I really, really like it, but whether it is better than some of the other options we already have, we'll have to wait and see.
We will. But until then, be prepared for next week when we're having the money cards from this set being brought to your attention.
Oh yeah, and they're good ones too.
They are pretty good. So if you like the Commander sets or you're just interested, be sure to check that out. And also let us know how you feel, what you think on all of our social media platforms.
Yep, you can find us on Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, Tapped Out for all of our deck lists. Or you can just hit us up at our email at mtgthecardpool@gmail.com. We're all over.
If you like what we do, be sure to like and subscribe. This way you also hit the notifications. Get more right when you want it.
Please do.
But until then, I'm Stu.
And I'm Kyle.
And we'll see you next time at the Card Pool. Yeah, that sphere is good.
Yeah.